so that you can look at it, and would your proposed way of disclosing go beyond that federal tax return with additional information?
We may want to do that. We modeled the legislation after the Florida law, which requires either tax returns or a statement of income, an affidavit of a statement of income. So it's something that we're more than willing to investigate and do the committee process.
Let me make it clear too. The issue about accountability to the voters is extremely important, so that we can restore the trust in those that are running for office. We're asking our colleagues to help us pass this legislation. A 20%, 25% turnout in this week's election signifies that people are not real happy with government, and they're finding more and more reasons not to attend to their constitutional responsibility. And that clearly is something that those of us in the legislature are starting to recognize. It's very important that we give the legislature the tools and the people the tools to see exactly the transparency of what those elected officials are making, whether it's lucrative contracts with Goldman Sachs, whether it's Wall Street contracts, or it's people that are doing business with the state of Ohio. We want transparency, and this bill will allow just that.
How would this bill show Congressman Kasich's role in Lehman Brothers, though? How would it show? You mentioned, people need to have a right to know whether or not, he was involved in the collapse of Lehman Brothers. How would this show his role?
Well, it'll show the income he derived from Lehman Brothers. It'll show that he got a $500,000 bonus in the middle of the worst economic times of our lives. Right? So it'll help paint a picture of both, Congressman Kasich, anyone else who's running for state office, what their involvements were, who they're getting sources of income from, and how much, and what potential conflicts of interest they have for what we think are, the highest offices for the state of Ohio, the ones that we want. As Bob said, this is about trust in government officials. On a daily basis, we're out among constituents, and given the hard economic times, people are rightfully cynical about a lot of things in life, including government, and we want to diminish that cynicism. One is because we care about government. I care about having a strong, honorable, working government, and I want to diminish that cynicism as much as possible. So this bill will help make it clear where people's sources of income are coming from, especially in 2010, where we've got people suffering. I want them to know that Congressman Kasich, or whoever else is running for office, received money from one of the worst perpetrators of violence in our economic system in decades.
What would you say to those who might say this is part of a concerted Democratic effort to paint a picture of Congressman Kasich as a Wall Street person during this campaign? People don't know much about it, but this is just a political ploy by Democrats.
I have no problem accepting the fact that we're politicians. I'm a locomotive engineer. And I sometimes share my time, but I am a politician. And that's what this is all about. It's politicians being trustworthy, being transparent in what they do. I did an interview about a month ago with the Youngstown Vindicator. I offered my tax papers and would gladly do that for anyone who wants to look at it. But in the end, we're politicians, and we have to show people that people that are claiming that they want to run for office, that they are qualified to run for office, should be transparent about where they got their money, how they got to be millionaires, and to show people in middle class and people in our districts exactly how they got where they are. Look, we are politicians. We feel very strongly about making sure that people see that there's a difference between Democrats and Republicans, to show that people that there is a difference between candidates that are running for governor. And when you have a millionaire, perhaps a billionaire, that is running, pretending that he understands what Main Street is, when he's ripped off quite a few people at Wall Street, I think clearly this is what our obligation is as politicians.
And I just want to say, look, I care about this bill, this legislation. I want to see it happen, right? Whether, but I'm not going to deny that the kind of Republicans have given us a political tool in nominating John Kasich as their nominee for governor. I mean, in the middle of the worst economic storm of our lives, they nominated a guy from Wall Street who's made $500 million from Lehman Brothers. I mean, how can you pass that up in some sense in terms of exploiting their, kind of the contradictions that presents to Ohioans? And so, sure, obviously we're in a political environment, but I'm going to take advantage of it. I think we're going to take advantage of it and try to push this legislation because we care about it. This is a good piece of legislation.
Did you do this in concert with the governor's office, or was this just you two?
I did in concert with him.
We talked. Bobby and I talked. We talked with our staff, policy staff, and I had not talked to anyone from the governor's office. I had not talked to anyone from any of the other offices as well.
I have not talked to anyone.
I'm sure, I'm sure they're not disappointed that we're introducing this bill. We have not talked to them.
And we do read the newspaper. We do see what's happening out there. It's obvious that this was something that we thought should be talked about, and that we thought we could add to that discussion as the legislative branch. The executive branch can do one thing, the legislative Democrats can do another, and we felt very strongly that this was one of the issues that should be talked about. Now, let me make it clear to those that really care about this issue. You're talking about a state that is really struggling, a country that's really struggling. Now, pretty much now, I just recently mentioned the fact that the economies of Europe are struggling as well. But what we're now seeing is that Main Street America has found out that people were betting against them and their pensions, and betting against them and their future, and betting against them every chance they could, and using that money to benefit a few. The top 5%, as Mike has indicated, saw an income increase of almost 50%. What have we seen in Youngstown and Cleveland? We haven't seen that. We've seen the unemployment go up. We've seen people struggling. We've seen their pensions, where pensioners are really struggling as well. This, to me, says, here's the difference between the Democrat and the Republican Party. The Democrats are fighting to make sure that people understand that we're working for middle class and people and the poor. And the Republicans have decided that their person that will represent them will be a Wall Street person that's a millionaire. Those are things that are important to differentiate between who the people should be voting for.
Do either of you know, has the Florida law ever been challenged legally, either on the basis of privacy or contractually? I don't know, I can envision scenarios where someone leaves a firm and has to sign a confidentiality agreement on whatever package they may have received or compensation they had received when they were there.
I just don't know. That's a good question.
Would you be worried about
I know it's been in place since 1976. So
we have an ANOR, by the way. We have an ANOR agreement that they can release a tax form, or they can release a
affidavit
statement.
Income of over $1,000. Sources